Hi there. So during World War II, we can really say that the classic commando knives emerged. These were, of course, the Fairbairn-Sykes, the OSS Stiletto, the 1st Special Service Force V42. The Germans had the Nahkampfmesser, which actually dated back to World War I, very good design. But then after the war, some other designs have emerged, and in some ways, some of them can be considered improvements over those original classics. And today we're going to talk about one of those, the Gerber Mk2 combat knife. Design history is that they went into production in 1966 against design by Captain Bud Holtzman, US Army retired, who worked on the knife and had it tested by the Army at Fort Lewis, Washington State, quite extensively, and then it was put into production in October of '66 by Gerber. And this is the early production model. There's two schools of thought for such a knife, a military knife. Either it can be used for multiple tasks, which does include use against the enemy, but it can be used for tasks, more routine things, opening things, cutting and so on. Knives such as the K-bar fall into this category. They're very, very useful, sturdy knives. You can use them for general tasks, but if you do have to actually use it in combat, it will do the job as well. So that's one school of thought. And the other school of thought is that you have a dedicated knife and what I generally term a killing knife. The term fighting knives used quite often, but as I've explained before, fighting knives are really things like the Bowie, which is designed for fighting knife on knife, a very rare occurrence, by the way. Combat knife works, knife you would use in combat, or killing knife, and definitely the knives that we've talked about from World War II were designed as killing knives to thrust deep into the body cavity, taking out sentries and that kind of thing. And the Gerber Mk2 definitely falls into this category. It's a killing knife, plain and simple. I bought a Gerber in the 1970s. It was a later type which had saw teeth. The reason for this was the original was considered too aggressive, and the US Army PXs actually were reluctant to sell them. And the company then added saw teeth on both sides and marketed it as a survival knife. And I bought one and I actually used it on a survival course. However, I found that it was totally unsuitable for this task. Survival requires whittling away, making objects out of wood, cutting, sharpening stakes for various things, and precise types of shaving wood away and things like that, which you have to put your thumb on the back of the blade. And the saw teeth prevent you doing this. And I found that as a survival knife, it was lacking. Fortunately, I had a Golic at the same time, and I used that on the course. I actually ended up swapping my Gerber for something else, and for several years I regretted it because I did like the basic design. And then a few years ago, Southnar, Craig Douglas, very kindly gave me a Gerber 2 without the saw teeth, and this is the knife he gave me. So this is the knife, and as you can see, it doesn't have the saw teeth, but what it does have is the classic Gerber wasp-waisted design, which is what's known as a wound aggravating design, because as you insert the knife into the target, it cuts on the way in on the thrust. I'll just try and get it into view. There we go. Cuts on the way in, and then because it's wide near the tip, it cuts on the way out as well. It makes the wound worse. So that's a design feature of it. The original knife came with a leather sheath, which was either brown, black, and some were produced in green colour. The problem with leather was that it rots in the jungle, and Vietnam was heavily jungle. At the time, that was quite normal for knife sheath material, leather. Alternative would have been canvas. However, times have changed and we have better materials. Now, the knife that Craig gave me didn't have a sheath with it, so I procured an aftermarket sheath for the knife, and this is it. And it has, it's made of Kajura, and it has numerous attachment points, has a belt hanger, loops. You can attach it to web gear. It's got a leg tie down that you can use, and so on. It also has an internal plastic liner which ensures that the edges of the knife don't cut through the stitches, and also the tip won't penetrate the sheath if you're parachuting or you know climbing obstacles and you fall and so on. Vigorous activity. So it's a very well made sheath. It's kind of a generic sheath, but it fits the Gerber perfectly, and it wasn't expensive at all. Now, the original leather sheath comes with a pouch on the front, and this one also has one. And in the pouch you can have some useful items. And for example, you can have a fire starter, which is a magnesium block, and it has a blade which you shave the magnesium block, and then you can start a fire. So that can be a useful item. Another possibility would be a sharpening kit. So the pouch comes with that. It doesn't really add to the bulk very much. Now the another interesting thing about the original design was the blade is angled, and I'll show you by using a ruler that you can see its angle 5 degrees. And the reason for this is so that it would conform to the curves of the body in the sheath on the belt, or if it's on the web gear. I was also told by somebody that the blade can be angled upwards, and it would then slip through the rib cage and find the heart and the vital blood vessels more easily. But I've never had that confirmed by anyone at all. As far as Gerber was concerned, it was to contour the body. However, some purchasers, when they received the knife, not realizing this feature, thought the knife had been bent in transit and complained. So that eventually the angling was dropped from the design. And in fact, my first Gerber didn't have the angle. This one that Craig sent me was an older design, and it does have that feature, which is kind of iconic to the Gerber design. Another feature is the handle material. The original design was a finish that's called a cat's tongue, because it's rough like a cat's tongue is, and it was achieved by spraying molten steel onto the underlying aluminium handle, and it works very, very well. You can see it. It gives you a texture which is a little bit like the kind of wrapping we sometimes put on pistols, a kind of tape, wing walk tape, and that kind of skateboard tape, that kind of thing, to improve the grip in parts. And it's very good. The grip is very secure when your hand's wet with sweat or blood and so on, and it's definitely a plus. Later designs had a material called Gerber armor hide, which is an electrostatically applied powder to the handle. Gives you kind of a plasticky feel. Good corrosion resistance and so on, but I do prefer the cat's tongue design. The guard is quite small, but it's not a knife on knife fighting weapon, so you don't really need that much of a guard. And then just one other thing, I'll compare with the Fairbairn handle, and we have the Gerber, and you can see that the Gerber's more substantial. It's basically a similar shape, except there's more flats on the Gerber, which prevents the knife from rolling in the hand, which is a problem with the original Fairbairn. And you still have the contours which allow the grip. Classically, the Fairbairn had the foregrip, but you just wrap your hand around it and it locks into the hand very, very well. So it's an improvement on the original Fairbairn design. And just to sum up, really, the Fairbairn is an iconic design. It's got its place in history. Fairbairn and Sykes, their contribution to World War II special operations training and equipment is secured. The design's there, and it's their legacy. However, it was produced under wartime conditions in a wartime economy, and improvements could be made. And in my opinion, the Gerber Mk2 is a substantial improvement over the Fairbairn Sykes. That's not taking anything away from the FS, but if we don't improve with time, then why are we trying to make progress at all? So there you have it. That's just my view of the Gerber Mk2 combat knife.